Chapter 230 to 236. Looking at the two Uchiha brothers who are severely injured and exhausted and still believe that they can easily defeat him, Kuroto chuckled lightly and raised his hand to print the hand seals. Sensing the chakra fluctuations, both Ryota and Hideki had a sudden bad feeling. Both of them did not understand the specific reason why they were having such a premonition, because in their belief no matter what Hyuga Kuroto may try to do, he wouldn't be able to change the inevitable. As, according to Ryota and Hideki, no one in the entire shinobi world would be able to resist two Manjikyu Sharingan awakeners at the same time, not even the former god of shinobi, Senju Hashirama. So, why was there uneasiness? Why a sense of dread plaguing their hearts? Was it just because of the shadow left by Hyuga Kuroto, or was there something more to it? Ryota gritted his teeth, and suppressing the apprehension in his heart he shouted, "Don't waste your effort, you damn ant. You have incurred the wrath of Uchiha. Even if you beg us, you are going to face the consequences of offending the gods of SH. Walla. Walla." Ryota suddenly stopped midway as the cyan blue chakra flames gushed out of Kuroto's body and covering his arms up to the elbow joint and legs up to the calves. P.S. The appearance of this type of cloak is similar to the thunder cloak that Luck Valtia of the Black Bulls from Black Clover uses. I already said that you seem to have made a mistake. Slowly rising in the air, Kuroto muttered in an indifferent tone, "Even if both of you have awakened Manjikyu Sharingan, it makes no difference. In the face of the level of strength that I have, your so-called Susanoo of the absolute defense is not even worth mentioning." In an instant, the cyan glow of Tenseigan chakra further illuminated the night sky. This? Ryota and Hideki looked at Kuroto's state with a surprised expression. They have never seen or heard about a technique like this, and both of them could tell that this technique was extremely dangerous based on the chakra fluctuations emitting from those cyan flames. And precisely why both of them realized this, they also understood that contrary to what they expected, Hyuga Kuroto is really not an ordinary shinobi. Facing such a change, Hideki shouted, How can you have such strength? It's just not possible. And if you have such strength, then why the hell are you after Manjikyu Sharingan? You can't even use our dojutsu. Just what the hell do you want from all of T? Hideki did not get to finish his words, and Kuroto, who was indifferently hovering in the air, disappeared from his position. Even with the Manjikyu Sharingan, Hideki was not even able to notice any trace of the position Kuroto went to. And suddenly feeling the same chakra fluctuations coming from above his head, Hideki was taken aback. He appeared above me? But by the time Hideki realized, it was already too late. Boom. As soon as realized Kuroto's position, he tried to look up and move away from his spot, but suddenly a fist collided with the skeletal frame of his golden Susanoo, and the so-called absolute defense instantly shattered and disappeared into multiple ethereal fragments. Susanoo, the most powerful technique that a Manjikyu Sharingan awakener has in his arsenal of techniques, collapsed as if it was just a termite-ridden wooden figure in the face of Kuroto's attack. And this scene was indeed shocking. With the Susanoo armor broken, Hideki collapsed on the ground and muttered in disbelief, "Why, how could this be possible?" At the moment he awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, Hideki felt that there was nothing he has to fear anymore, and he could make storms in the shinobi world, but the moment his Susanoo broke as if it was nothing, and that was not just Susanoo breaking but his worldview collapsing. Hideki again felt that he has returned to that very same torture cell, with his status being the prisoner suffering at the hands of Hyuga Kuroto, like a test subject, and he no longer has any control over his own life or death. Whoosh. Another sound of breaking past the wind speed resounded in Hideki's ear. This sound brought out Hideki from his trance. He found that Hyuga Kuroto was just a few meters away from him. Hideki was suddenly panicked and tried to retreat. You get away from me." But regardless of what he said or how hard he tried to resist, Hideki was controlled by some kind of traction force and flew towards Kuroto. Kuroto caught Hideki by the neck and without any hesitation, he gouged out Hideki's eyes with his other hand. Ah! Hideki's cries of pain resounded in the surroundings, but Kuroto didn't care. And after digging out both of Hideki's eyes, Kuroto threw him to the side and put the pair of freshly stolen Manjikyu Sharingan in a small nutrition tank he prepared beforehand. Boom. A sudden collision sound of a giant chakra blade with an intangible barrier rang out while Kuroto was busy with this process. Uchiha Ryota, who suddenly attacked Kuroto seeing that his brother was in danger, couldn't deal any damage as the chakra blade from his Susanoo collided with an intangible gravity barrier that sent him flying back. Ryota was flabbergasted now. From the moment of Kuroto's activation of that unusual technique to now, only a few seconds have passed, but the battle situation has flipped by a 180-degree turn. Hyuga Kuroto was too fast, Ryota couldn't even react to what happened, and when he tried to defend his brother the attack did no damage. How are you supposed to beat someone whom you can't even touch? If not for being sent flying back by that gravitational push that broke another few of his bones, Ryota might have even wondered if all of this is some genjutsu. Kuroto did not care about Ryota's attack or Hideki's painful cries. He calmly sealed the small nutrition tank containing Hideki's Manjikyu Sharingan inside a storage scroll. After he was done with this, Kuroto put the scroll inside his ninja bag and then turned to look at the bewildered Ryota. One done, another one to go, muttered Kuroto with an indifferent expression. His expression had no signs of happiness even though he easily defeated Hideki and acquired a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan. The reason is pretty simple. Hideki may have awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, but given the terrible state he was in, Kuroto is sure that Hideki did not even use 10% of the true power of the Manjikyu Sharingan. Therefore, Kuroto's win is only natural even if he did not use the Tenseigan chakra mode and only chose to cloak his arms and legs with the flames of Tenseigan chakra. At this time, Ryota got up and spoke in horror. What in the hell are you? Are you even a human? Chuckles, are you so surprised? Were you not the one referring to yourself and your brother as gods of shinobi or whatnot? And now you are scared of a mere Tokubetsu Jonin one such as me? You really crack me up, Uchiha Ryota. But all things aside, does it really matter whether I am a human, a demon, or a god? Taking a pause, Kuroto continued with a mocking tone, I mean it's not as if that's going to change anything for you. Ryota drew out the short sword, which is actually Kuroto's Kusanagi sword, he was carrying with him and roared, give me back my brother's eyes. Following the shout, bloody tears spill out of Ryota's eyes. Kuroto was able to see chakra gathering in Ryota's left eye and understood that Ryota planned to use his Manjikyu-specific dojutsu. Kuroto would obviously not be careless in the face of Manjikyu-specific dojutsu, so pulling Ryota towards himself with rain will pull, Kuroto also flew towards the incoming Ryota by increasing his flight speed with a gravitational boost. Under the effect of rain will pull, Kuroto rapidly approached the incoming Ryota. As he was flying forward, Kuroto was able to clearly observe the chakra fluctuations in Ryota's left eye. Without a doubt, Ryota planned to use his Manjikyu-specific technique. Understanding this, Kuroto muttered, his lack of physical energy is restricting him to be able to use his dojutsu. This is the best opportunity to deal a heavy blow. In just a short moment Kuroto noticed that although Ryota's chakra fluctuations were aggressive, because of his several injuries, the chakra was also quite chaotic, therefore his speed of molding and controlling chakra slowed down. Whoosh! Kuroto further accelerated his speed to such an extent that it left a whistling sound, and while reaching close to Ryota, he brought his hand backward and punched the Susanoo with the same amount of strength as he did for Hideki's Susanoo. Boom! Crack! Cracks! Kuroto's fist collided with the Susanoo, producing a loud sound. A large amount of dust and soot rose into the sky and the bone-cracking sound resounded. Crack! Cracks! When the dust cleared, Kuroto noticed that even though there were many cracks in the skeletal body of Susanoo, it still managed to resist Kuroto's attack without being one-shot. This was contrary to Kuroto's expectations, as he can be sure that his strength and speed in this state far surpass Yondaime Reikage, and yet he couldn't smash Ryota's Susanoo as he did with Hideki's. That's stretch? Well, no matter, I guess I'll have to put some effort into this one, muttered Kuroto. If Ryota's Susanoo can't be shattered in one blow, then he has got more of them coming. Let's see how many can he bear. Ha 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 ha. But before Kuroto continued, Ryota's maniacal laughter sounded from within the cracked ribcage of Susanoo, and his chakra fluctuations started to get more intense. Kuroto's eyes narrowed at this moment, and instead of initiating another barrage of attacks, he withdrew his fist and retreated backward, observing the changes with a doubtful expression. Ryota's laughter did not stop, and soon, bloody tears flowed down from his eyes, giving him a devil-like look. Almost at the same instant, the skeletal body Susanoo covering over his body started to change. The skeletal figure that only has the upper body part down to the waist grew tall in the blink of an eye, with legs coming out from its lower frame, followed by the appearance of 4 arms. The muscles and skin grew over the skeletal frame simultaneously, but it didn't stop there as armor formed over the humanoid figure for further protection, and that still wasn't the end. Soon it turned into a complete body Susanoo that even had wings for flight, Tengu-like nose, coupled with the robes and ornate armor. Just when Kuroto was stunned and thought that this was the end, another coating of golden flames shrouded over the entire complete Susanoo body, making it more dangerous. These golden flames were not ordinary, they were conjured by the second Manjikyu technique that Uchiha Ryota awakened, and like another layer of armor, they enveloped the giant, turning the golden-orange giant as hot as the core of the sun. Immediately afterward, Uchiha Ryota's body entered the diamond-shaped cavity in the forehead section of the Susanoo. Are you kidding me? That's the complete body Susanoo. Kuroto exclaimed in surprise. If it was someone else, they might be left stunned when they see such a majestic and omniscient figure, but Kuroto was just a little surprised and soon recovered. But one thing is very true, he really did not expect that Ryota could display such a thing here, at least not with the condition he is in currently. After a bit of thinking, Kuroto muttered in surety, no, he really should not be able to use the complete body Susanoo. Although Susanoo is a technique common to all Manjikyu Sharingan users, even geniuses like Shursui and Itachi have not been able to use something like full-body Susanoo when they awakened Manjikyu Sharingan. Moreover, complete body Susanoo should only be accessible at the level of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, or by 6 paths chakra, as in the case of Madara, Sasuke and Obito respectively. And Ryota does not have Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and definitely not the 6-path chakra. Not to mention, Ryota's condition limits the amount of chakra that he is able to use. Therefore, common sense states that Uchiha Ryota should not be able to use full-body Susanoo. And yet he is able to use the full-body Susanoo, which can only mean one thing. This is the effect of his other Manjikyu dojutsu. Because of all the aforementioned reasons, Kuroto could only think of this possibility. One of Uchiha Ryota's Manjikyu Sharingan techniques somehow allows him to strengthen the Susanoo to an unusually strong level that he is able to use the full-body Susanoo. And it is indeed a possibility, as there are many debates about Madara's Manjikyu ability being very similar to this one if not the same. So, Kuroto can't deny this possibility. Manjikyu Sharingan can have all sorts of bizarre and dangerous techniques derived from the user's emotions at the time of awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan. Based on his knowledge, Kuroto has divided these techniques into 4 different categories, based on their effects. The first category lists the Genjutsu-type techniques, such as Shursui's Kotoama Tsukumi, Itachi's Tsukuyami, and Fugaku's Taikyakuzu. The second category lists the ninjutsu-type techniques, such as Itachi and Sasuke's Amaterasu. The third category lists augmentation-type or transformation-type techniques, such as Sasuke's Kagutsuchi and Shinichi's Hachiman. The fourth type lists the strangest and most unpredictable space-time techniques, such as Obito and Kakashi's Kamui, and Shinichi's Nakasawa. Ryota's Manjikyu Sharingan technique, which allows him to transform the Susanoo, can probably be listed in the third type, as it is most likely an augmentation-type technique. And the other technique, which is somehow related to those golden flames, can be listed in the second category as it is a ninjutsu-type technique. Well, putting that aside and coming back to the battle. Since the full-body Susanoo is capable of flight, so, at this time, Ryota controlled his majestic Susanoo and flew into the air. Looking at Kuroto in the distance, he shouted with a burst of fiendish laughter, "Ha ha ha, how? You have no way of beating me now, hand over my brother's eyes, and I will be kind enough to give you a painless death." Kuroto did not care about Ryota's words and muttered with an observant tone, "It appears that both of you brothers are going to surpass my expectations, again and again. I did not expect that you would be able to use something like the full-body Susanoo. Now I have to reconsider some things. Your Manjikyu Sharingan pair turns out to be quite valuable actually. Full-body Susanoo allows the user to step into the realm of Super Kage level, therefore, Ryota's Manjikyu Sharingan is indeed very valuable." Ryota heard Kuroto's words and was reminded of the time he was tied to that pillar being tortured repeatedly while that masked freak muttered various analogies and theories. He was filled with rage and shouted angrily, "I am going to show you what the hell is truly like." Speaking so, Ryota used all his power to urge the Susanoo to fight Kuroto. At this point he didn't even care about the consequences, all he wanted was to rip apart Hyuga Kuroto. At a small unimportant village about 8 miles away from the mountain where Kuroto and Ryota were fighting. Inside an izakaya, a 4-man team of shinobi passing through this village was taking a short break. While having some rest, one of the ninjas of the team looking at the night sky through the glass windowsill suddenly frowned. To confirm what he saw, he leaped out of the window and jumped on top of the roof, and gazed towards the distant mountain intently. Noticing his actions, even the other members of the team also jumped on top of the roof one by one. And soon everyone found one golden light and one cyan light flickering across the distant horizon. The team of shinobi was unable to judge what exactly caused the flickering of lights because of the large distance and the cover of mountains, so no one could figure out the exact cause of the glow to appear too. One of the shinobi muttered, "Could it be possible that those lights are generated by fireworks?" Another one said, "Could be possible." But if I remember correctly, that mountain is pretty isolated, so I don't think there was any settlement nearby that mountain. The third shinobi, who was looking at the map, said solemnly, "You are right, there is not a single commercial road passing nearby that mountain, let alone a village or town. Even small settlements are not there." In the shinobi world, Land of Fire is believed to be the richest and most stable of all nations, and this is true even when it comes to the economics of the nation, and for this reason most of the villages, towns, and settlements that don't try to particularly isolate or hide for whatever reasons are settled nearby the commercial roads. Since no commercial road passes by that mountainous region, so the possibility of a settlement being built there is less likely. And the possibility of a grand fireworks display in places where there are no settlements built is obviously very less. Therefore, everyone immediately reacted at those solemn words and understood that those lights are probably a result of powerful shinobi confronting each other. Although no one can understand why a fight between shinobi would generate such strong light that its traces are even visible miles away, what's more concerning is the identity of the shinobi in that confrontation. Konoha may have put their hunting operation on a halt because of obtaining no result for the past 2 months, but this does not mean that the shinobi have lost their vigilance against Amatsukami. Now everyone is more than ever clear that Amatsukami is not a simple bounty-mean organization and has to be dealt with extreme caution. Therefore, all shinobi have been ordered that they must pay close attention to any signs leading to Amatsukami during all their missions, secure that intelligence, and submit it carefully. The captain of the team thought for a while and finally ordered, "Fire the signal flares." Bang, wildly. Boom. Bang, wildly. Boom. Bang, wildly. Boom. Bang, wildly. Boom. 4 signal flares were fired simultaneously. This will surely allow other ninjas to discover their positions. Kuroto sighed. Seeing that Uchiha Ryota was using the full-body Susanoo, Kuroto immediately printed the hand seals, and this time his entire body was covered with the Tenseigan chakra cloak, and the very next instant 7 truth-seeking orbs appeared behind him. Kuroto transformed 2 of the black balls and formed a protective wall that defended against the attacks of the full-body Susanoo's chakra blades. Boom. 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 Attacks after attacks kept on coming, but not even a single one of them could get past the defense of the black wall. Although the golden-orange chakra sword was extremely strong and as hot as the sun itself, it was still nothing in the face of truth-seeking orbs' defense. Each attack that landed on the defense wall broke that chakra sword, splashing flames all over the mountain, immediately igniting the whole mountain in a sea of golden flames. One more attack failed, and Ryota crouched in the diamond cavity of the full-body Susanoo, all while he was spurting out large amounts of blood. His coughing was even harder than previously, but he didn't care, he must kill that bastard. At this time, Kuroto waved his hand, removed the black wall from the front, and calmly observed Ryota's state. The unrestrained use of all the Manjikyu techniques at the same time is obviously not easy for Ryota, and this could clearly be seen. Kuroto could perceive that Ryota was sacrificing his vitality to continue maintaining the Susanoo, so he was dying faster than ever. The situation has developed to such a point, and given the fact that Ryota is pushing himself to such an extent despite understanding that he will die, so such a result is inevitable. Kuroto can be sure that he doesn't even need to attack anymore, just dodge, defend and parry against the attacks, and within just a few seconds Ryota's vitality will burn out completely. As a result he will die. But Kuroto isn't going to go with that option. This is because he also noticed that signal flare fired just a second ago, which means that the battle here has been detected by some passing shinobi, and this news will soon reach the ears of Konoha authorities, and within a few minutes hordes of shinobi will be coming here. So if the battle site is not cleared as early as possible, then Kuroto will have too many troubles. Secondly, the fusion of the 2 Manjikyu Sharingan pairs into Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan might also require Ryota's input. Therefore, Ryota's use has not been finished yet, so Kuroto does not want him to die so early. For these many reasons, Kuroto did not delay any longer, and without any more wait, he directed the 9 truth-seeking orbs in his right hand. 3 of the 9 truth-seeking orbs merged together to form a much larger orb than the remaining 6 orbs. 2 merged into pairs of 2 orbs each, as a result forming 3 large orbs. Under Kuroto's control, the resultant 4 were circling upon his hand, following the pattern of a planetary system. Next, Kuroto transferred all the Tenseigan chakra surrounding him towards his right hand. As a result, each of these truth-seeking orbs changed their color to azure color, and they further inflated to the size of a small-tailed beast bomb, making them extremely deadly. Azure will reincarnation explosion. Translator's note: the appearance is similar to Naruto's planetary Rasengan, each ball being around the same size as a small-tailed beast bomb, and the color is azure blue. With a soft murmur, Kuroto threw the entire planetary system type attack towards the full-body Susanoo. On the other side, Ryota also got up and shouted, I am going to show you the consequences of offending an Uchiha. With the last battle cry, Ryota directed all his chakra towards the 4 swords held by the 4 arms of his Susanoo. Each sword was at least 200 meters, and the golden flames were also transferred, creating a high-temperature coating over the 4 swords. Finally, the Susanoo armor also started spinning in a drilling motion and rushed towards the incoming planetary Azure Will reincarnation explosion. The planetary balls were continuously inflating as they went closer to the incoming Susanoo. Looking at Ryota coming towards the planetary balls, Kuroto had a look of pity for him. This is because Kuroto is sure that no matter how much Ryota tries, he wouldn't be able to resist this attack. And just as Kuroto expected, the final collision between the 2 attacks took place. As soon as the 2 attacks collided, a battle for the hegemony started, but this battle was very short and was soon concluded as planetary orbs easily overpowered that 4 swords drills and soon engulfed the Susanoo body in it. This would be the end of it. With Kuroto's murmur, the planetary balls that have engulfed the entire Susanoo body making a wave-like motion around the Susanoo body as well as the entire mountain. Inside that massive and turbulent wave-like vortex, the Susanoo did not pose any resistance and was completely shredded without leaving any fragment behind. But that wasn't the end of it. Followed by the Susanoo, the entire mountain was engulfed by the turbulent vortex, and soon enough, due to an extremely large amount of energy and no one controlling it, the vortex grew too unstable and soon caused an extremely large explosion. Boom! The explosion was so large that the altitude it covered stretched up to several kilometers in the sky and quite deep into the ground as well. But strangely enough, the radius of the explosion was not too large and only stretched up to the radius of several hundred meters. However, due to the high altitude it covered, the explosion was clearly visible from several miles away. The light and sound produced by the explosion were also quite lethal, as all the people blown away by the resulting terrible wind pressure generated due to the explosion and could only hear their ears buzzing for the next few minutes. After who knows how long, the dust finally cleared and Kuroto could clearly observe the situation. At this time, a pit, hundreds of meters deep, was left in place of the mountain, and Uchiha Ryota lied in the center of that pit, battered and bruised, blood flowing out of all his wounds. His appearance was also aged. Ryota's eyes were lifelessly gaping at the sky, and seeing Hyuga Kuroto arrive next to him, he can't help but ask, "Why did I lose?" Kuroto did not bother to answer, because he understood that this question Ryota did not ask him, but asked from himself. Receiving no answer, Ryota did not bother to speak anything more and soon lost his consciousness. With this over, Kuroto immediately removed Ryota's Manjikyu Sharingan, put them into another small nutrition tank, and stored the small nutrition tank inside a storage scroll. After putting the storage scroll inside his ninja bag, Kuroto lifted the fainted Ryota using rain wheel pull and then walked towards Hideki, who was also lying unconscious not far away. Next, Kuroto observed the entire battle site to see if anything that would point to him through the grapevine was left. Although he has already removed all the traces from the mountain beforehand, you can never be too careful, so after checking that nothing was left, Kuroto finally breathed a sigh of relief as his objective of this entire ordeal was finally completed. With nothing more left to do, Kuroto printed the hand seals, and the very next moment both he and the unconscious brothers disappeared from the battlefield, leaving nothing more than a cloud of white smoke. Whoosh! 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 One after another, a large number of shinobi leaped from one tree to another in the night forest. Although these figures were coming from all directions, their converging point was the same, that is, the place where that loud large explosion occurred a few minutes ago. As soon as they reached the place, the first thing that they were greeted with was the sea of golden fire that was burning uncontrollably. The next thing they discovered was the deep pit which lied at the center of the sea of golden flames. Then there were several hundreds of meters long trenches all over the battlefield. Overall, it appeared as if a devastating war just took place here, which was actually true in a sense. Before proceeding to take steps on the battlefield, the burning fire must be extinguished as the temperature of the flames was unusually high, which would cause burns if anyone carelessly treads at the battlefield. As such, the ninjas that arrived at the battlefield endured the charring smoke that choked their throats and high temperature that caused heat burns even from a distance, and began using all sorts of water-style jutsu to extinguish the flames. However, some soon discovered that this unique type of golden fire was too violent and couldn't be extinguished by water. Fortunately, the fire was not spreading to the surroundings and was only burning this area, so that was a bit relieving, but they will have to put down the fire if the site analysis has to be done. Not long after, Shimura Danzo, the commander of the hunting operation, soon led a team of shinobi and arrived at this burning site. Coming with Danzo were not only a large number of Umbu of the Root subdivision, many elite shinobi, as well as the Toad Sannin Jiraiya. Looking at the mess that this once-upon-a-time calm mountain is now, Danzo had a gloomy look. Nobody could understand what Elder Danzo was thinking at this moment. By now, the flames have started to gradually fade away for some unknown reason, so it saved everyone a lot of trouble. Carefully walking through the battlefield, Jiraiya squatted before a long trench and looked at it thoughtfully. Hyuga Hizashi, who has recovered from his injuries, walked to the side of the Toad Sannin and muttered in disbelief, "What kind of ninjutsu can cause such trenches all over the battlefield? Are they caused by some kind of wind-style ninjutsu?" Jiraiya knew that Hizashi wasn't asking this question from him but from himself. He still decided to speak, so shaking his head, Jiraiya spoke, "These trenches are not made by the use of wind-style ninjutsu but because of sword energies." Unlike other shinobi from Konoha, Jiraiya summoned Toad. Gamabunta uses a Tonto. Of course, this Tonto is small only relative to Gamabunta's humongous size, but that's another topic of discussion. So, anyway, Gamabunta's Tonto is a huge, short sword. And Jiraiya is used to seeing many such trenches left on the ground every time he summons Gamabunta to participate in battles. Therefore, he could easily tell that these trenches were not formed by some kind of wind-style ninjutsu but by some kind of giant sword slashes. Sword energies. Hizashi was stunned. What kind of sword can create such long trenches? This was beyond Hizashi's understanding. If the trenches were tens of meters long, then that could still be found acceptable, but hundreds of meters long? Were the people fighting here were humans or towering titans? While everyone was busy making their own analysis, the sensor ninjas also got busy in search of any remains of chakra they can use to identify the people who fought here. The leader of the sensor ninjas spoke. There are 3 types of chakra traces present here, 2 of which are very similar and should belong to the closely related people, and their chakra is very cold and evil, while the 3rd type of chakra is kind of strange. I have never sensed something like this, but this chakra is unusually gentle and soothing, completely opposite to that of the previous 2. Uchiha Kaminari asked eagerly, "Can you identify who they are? Let me try and see if that is possible." The leader of the sensor nin again closed his eyes and tried to sense, and after a few seconds, he shook his head. Reading the characteristics of chakra is indeed possible, but their traces do not match with any type of chakra I have sensed before. But there's something strange, all the 3 chakras. He couldn't seem to be entangled in words on how to describe it. Jiraiya walked over at this time and questioned, "What happened to these chakra traces?" As soon as he noticed Jiraiya, he seemed to have found his point of reference and immediately spoke. "Jiraiya-sama, the intensity of those 2 cold chakras is not any lower than yours, but what's troubling is that the chakra of the last one is much higher than you. I have sensed the chakra of many people, even that of the Sandaime Reikage, but it wouldn't be wrong to say that the chakra of this 3rd person was even higher than him. And from this, I can conclude that the people who fought here are only 3, not even a single more. Moreover, that 2 evil and cold chakras were confronting that gentle and peaceful one." Jiraiya was also stunned. If the chakra of those people reaches such an unusually high level and one of them even surpasses someone like the Sandaime Reikage, then that is a very concerning issue. Not just Jiraiya, but even the other shinobi around were stunned by the sensor nin's words. It must not be forgotten that Jiraiya is one of the strongest shinobi of the current Konoha, so the fact that it can be confirmed that all the 3 people who fought here were either on the same level as him or probably higher is indeed very concerning. One of the shinobi said, "Could it possible that they are the last members of the Uzumaki clan?" Sensor nin said, "It's hard to judge, so I am not sure." Hizashi muttered anxiously, "Since when did so many powerhouses appear in the shinobi world?" Akimichi Choza muttered with some sadness in his tone, "If Yondaime-sama was still alive, then these rogue ninjas would have never dared to venture into the land of fire and cause so much trouble. Sigh, but alas." And Uchiha spoke when he heard Akimichi Choza's, "Do not worry, Akimichi Dano, as long as the Uchiha clan is in Konoha, no one will be allowed to humiliate Konoha get by after doing it." As he spoke, another Uchiha added, "Yes, the Uchiha clan will never let these bastards get away after causing so much trouble for Konoha." Another Uchiha questioned from the sensor nin, "Can these chakra remains be tracked to find out where they went after the battle here?" The sensor nin tried for a while and soon shook his head, "I am afraid, but it's not possible." "Is there really no way to track these 3 bastards?" questioned Uchiha Kaminari. The censornin said, there are traces remaining here. However, these 3 shinobi suddenly disappeared, as if they were never even here, so the most likely possibility is that they used some kind of space-time ninjutsu to leave this place, as such tracking them is most likely impossible. Damn it. Uchiha Kaminari cursed, if only they can be tracked, then with the strength of Patriarch and Shursui it might have been possible to catch them. From the beginning to the end, Shimura Danzo did not interject in the conversation, but he did pay close attention to it. And one doubt was lingering in his mind, he was wondering who the 3 of people who fought here are. If it is assumed that one side is related to Amatsukami, then who is the other party? And why was that part confronting Amatsukami? Is it possible that they are Akatsuki, just like the last time? It does seem possible, considering that the hostile relationship between the 2 sides is quite apparent. Kuroto Secret Laboratory. Looking at the 2 small nutrition tanks before him, each containing a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, Kuroto again breathed a sigh of relief. Although that stimulus test took too much of his time, and was filled with many accidents and variables, the final result he obtained was worth all the hassle Kuroto had to go through. Then Kuroto's gaze specifically turned towards the small nutrition tank containing Uchiha Hideki's Manjikyu Sharingan. What could be Hideki's Manjikyu Sharingan specific techniques? Since Hideki did not use any of the techniques in the battle other than the Susanoo, so it was a little hard to guess. Kuroto's thirst for knowledge is very similar to his sensei Orochimaru and is something he really can't restrain. For this reason, he has been so obsessed with all sorts of experiments. Discovering secrets and exploring the unknown gives Kuroto a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, which is one of his main driving forces, pushing him forward towards his goal step by step. Therefore, Kuroto did not wait any longer and quickly used the remaining of the 2 low-quality clones. Putting the clone body on the test bench, Kuroto quickly used the chakra scalpel to remove the semi-completed Byakugan from the eye sockets. Putting them in a solution jar at the side to keep them fresh, Kuroto transplanted Uchiha Hideki's Manjikyu Sharingan in those empty eye sockets of the clone body. After having finished all of this, Kuroto sat on the chair at the side and made the hand seals, Tenseigan Soul descend. As soon as the seals were finished, Kuroto's main body suddenly became lethargic and lowered its head, and at the same instant, the clone body lying on the test bench opened its eyes. After transferring his soul to the clone body, Kuroto suddenly opened his eyes, but a sudden sense of dizziness attacked. Kuroto had to grit his teeth and immediately close his eyes and then open again after a bit of adapting. At this time, Kuroto's brain was able to perceive a strange red and black pattern from his eyes. Kuroto's state was in sort of a trance due to the dizziness, and he had to spend a few seconds getting used to the feeling and then try getting up. It's really not an easy task to use someone else's dojutsu. Kuroto muttered helplessly. Now Kuroto can somewhat understand that people like Nagato and Kakashi, who could adapt to the transplanted dojutsu albeit only to a limited extent, really have a tough time. Shaking his head to let go of these thoughts, Kuroto focused on adapting to these eyes, and when the sense of dizziness subsided, he was finally able to concentrate to some extent. As such, he carefully got up from the test bench and walked towards the mirror. He really wanted to observe these transplanted eyes, and Kuroto was a bit surprised as he saw those unique black eyes with a scarlet pattern, but at the same time, there was a bit of letdown because the pattern was not that of the Manjikyu Sharingan, but of the 3-tomo Sharingan. Understanding this, Kuroto muttered, no wonder the dizziness suddenly subsided. Initially, Kuroto was a bit happy and felt that the adaptability of the Manjikyu Sharingan was much easier than he expected, as it only took a few minutes to adapt to the transplanted pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, but it appears that wasn't the case, as the Manjikyu Sharingan automatically retracted to the 3-tomo state. But after pondering for a while, Kuroto felt that this is natural. After all, even Kakashi, whose Manjikyu Sharingan was awakened by his own chakra, also couldn't fully adapt to the Manjikyu Sharingan, and had to spend a whole lot of time to train and get used to the Manjikyu Sharingan. Even Nagato's case was the same, and so was Danzo's. This clearly shows that transplanting others' dojutsu is never going to be easy. Of course, Kuroto has a lot of advantages over these people. Firstly, Kuroto himself is a shinobi who has access to 2 dojutsu, being the Byakugan and the Tenseigan. Secondly, because of his experience in adapting to the Tenseigan at the time of awakening it, Kuroto will obviously not face as many problems as Kakashi and others went through. Thirdly, his soul is used to the feeling of Tenseigan chakra, which is a superior dojutsu compared to Sharingan and Manjikyu Sharingan, so that's another plus point for Kuroto. And finally, compared to Kakashi, who had no personal knowledge, resource material, or guidance on how to use Sharingan and Manjikyu Sharingan, Kuroto is in a much better case. There is a lot of information he tortured out of the Uchiha brothers. Then there is Shisui and Shinichi who would not mind giving him all the information he needs, thus Kuroto wouldn't have to spend a lot of time and effort in getting used to the basics, unlike Kakashi. With that clear, Kuroto used the same approach to activate the Manjikyu Sharingan as he used with the Tenseigan. And soon enough, as the chakra was directed towards the eyes, the three black tomo spinning in the scarlet copy wheel started converging together. Followed by the merging, the same sense of dizziness again struck Kuroto. The sudden trance caused by the dizziness interrupted the eye-opening process as the first attempt resulted in a failure. Huff, huff. Stabilizing himself to prevent the fall, Kuroto heavily gasped for breath. Although this attempt resulted in a failure, there was no sign of disappointment on Kuroto's face. This is because Kuroto understood that his approach was indeed correct as he expected, it's just that it would take some time to get used to the pressure of Manjikyu Sharingan. However, time is a currency that Kuroto lacks the most. Slow adaptation is also undesirable. Although the current clone he is using does not have genes belonging to the Uchiha clan, no matter how much effort is required to adapt in the least amount of time possible, Kuroto must do it. Having made up his mind, regardless of whether he could bear the immediate burden or not, Kuroto forcible directed Churka to the Sharingan to activate the Manjikyu Sharingan. Under Kuroto's control, the chakra in his body violently gathered around the veins moving towards the eyes and flowed into the Sharingan, as a result activating the Manjikyu Sharingan, but the sense of dizziness interrupted midway. TCH, now even a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan wants to stump me? As he cursed, Kuroto's expression hardened and he put more effort. Kuroto didn't know how long it passed, but the dizziness finally started to diminish and no longer prevented Kuroto from concentrating and thinking. At the same time, his blurry vision also gradually started clearing up. On his image inside the mirror, Kuroto also saw that the pattern of the eyes has finally changed from the three tomo to that of Hideki's Manjikyu Sharingan. Soon, information started coming to his mind about the name of some techniques and their mechanism. So, it's called Daikokutten? Kuroto muttered with a thoughtful expression. The techniques of both the eyes are the same. It is called Daikokutten and it guards the user against darkness and guides the user towards the light. The darkness can be anything that is spiritual, genjutsu attacks, soul attacks, or fuinjutsu attacks that affects the soul of the user can be counted in the range of Daikokutten's coverage. In other words, Daikokutten is a type of defensive jutsu that guards the user's soul. It's just that it does not have any active use, but a passive one that would help the user stay guarded against any type of soul-damaging attacks. Jutsu like Kotoama Tsukumi, Tsukuyami, Taikyakuzu, Shiki Fujin, Dead Demon Consuming Seal, would no longer have any effect on a person who has Daikokutten in his arsenal. Understanding this, Kuroto thought, although this dojutsu wouldn't be useful most of the time when needed in the face of people like Shisui, Itachi, Fugaku, and Uzumaki fuinjutsu users, Daikokutten will be a real lifesaver. As such, this technique was really valuable. Who knows what is the true extent of this ability? There might even be a possibility that this dojutsu can even resist jutsu like Mugen Tsukuyami and Karma Seal to a certain extent, and if that's really the case, then Daikokutten is incredibly valuable, and Kuroto can't help but feel greedy for this technique. Since he has already found out the technique of Hideki's Manjikyu Sharingan, next he replaced those eyes with Ryota's Manjikyu Sharingan to better understand what are the techniques Ryota awakened. As soon as the information was received by his brain, Kuroto learned that the two techniques Ryota awakened are called Yayorozu and Amatsuhikon for the left and the right eye respectively. Yayorozu, the technique of the left eye, is an augmentation type technique and allows the user to increase the physical stats of all the things that he wants to, sort of like a buff or strengthening for the physical aspects of fins. While Amatsuhikon, the technique of the right eye, is also an augmentation type technique, but it is different from its antipode, Amatsuhikon, that allows the user to increase the energy stats of all the things that he wants to, sort of like a buff or increase the energy aspects. After getting this information, Kuroto was able to understand how Ryota was able to maintain such a large Susanoo with the condition he was in and was still alive even after suffering damage from Azure Will reincarnation explosion. Ryota used Yayorozu to increase his own and Susanoo's physical aspects, then used Amatsuhikon to increase the chakra in his body to supply the necessary amount of chakra needed to maintain such a large full-body Susanoo. But there was still one thing confusing Kuroto. If the two techniques are these, then what was that golden fire? I mean, his Susanoo's color is indeed golden, but those golden flames were a bit different, so they couldn't have been the same, or is it possible that he created that golden fire using these two techniques? This might be the case, or is it possible that those golden flames are abilities of Ryota's Susanoo itself? Each Susanoo grants its user some kind of weapon. Perhaps Ryota's Susanoo allowed him to wield those golden flames. I will have to look into that later on, muttered Kuroto. With that out of the way, Kuroto was now in another dilemma. He has to choose 2 techniques out of the 3 that he is going to keep at the time of fusing the 2 Manjikyu Sharingan pairs into the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan pair. It is inevitable that when the 2 pairs fuse to give the Eternal Manjikyu, the abilities of one of the pair will be lost, and since all the 3 techniques are incredibly useful, so there is a tough decision before him, and Kuroto will have no choice but to make it sooner or later. Which one to abandon, Daikokutten, Yaoyorozu, or Amatsuhikon? A tough decision indeed. About the method of fusion of 2 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan into a pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and key points related to it, Kuroto isn't really sure how it's achieved, because there is not much information available in regards to this that Kuroto can use for reference. After all, there were only 2 people shown to have ever awakened Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and they were obviously Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Sasuke. In Uchiha Madara's case, close to nothing but speculations are known about Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Azuna's Manjikyu Sharingan abilities. Senju Tobarama may have stated that he has seen Amaterasu before, and even if we assume that Amaterasu was related to Uchiha Azuna, but there is no hard evidence to prove whether that speculation is indeed correct or not. Even the techniques Uchiha Madara had after awakening the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan are unknown. Therefore, the only one Kuroto can refer to is the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan of Uchiha Sasuke. Itachi's Manjikyu techniques were Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, and before his death, Itachi used transcription seal to seal Amaterasu in Sasuke's Sharingan for it to be activated the moment Sasuke sees the so-called Madara's Manjikyu Sharingan. And coincidentally enough, Sasuke awakened Amaterasu as one of his Manjikyu techniques. Although Sasuke's awakening was also related to his hatred and intent to destroy Konoha, the fact that he specifically awakened Amaterasu couldn't have been just because of his hatred. Of course, Kuroto isn't sure whether this conjecture of his is correct or not, but it could be true as there is no evidence to deny this possibility. So, there is a possibility that Itachi's sealing of Amaterasu in Sasuke's Sharingan played some role in Sasuke's awakening of Amaterasu. Therefore, we can consider that the transcription seal might have some degree of influence on the Manjikyu technique of an awakener. And if this conjecture is true, only then can Kuroto make the choice. Kuroto has decided that he would choose Daikokutten of Hideki's Manjikyu Sharingan and Yaoyorozu of Ryota's Manjikyu Sharingan. The idea is to seal Hideki's Daikokutten into Ryota's right eye using the transcription seal. In this way, it may be possible for Ryota's right eye to gain the technique Daikokutten of Hideki's eye at the time of awakening Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. As for the original ability of Ryota's right Manjikyu, which is Amatsuhikon, Kuroto feels that although this technique is also incredibly useful, it would be relatively unnecessary for him. After all, he already has Ryumyaku with him, so Kuroto wouldn't be facing problems of chakra shortage as far as he could think, and Kuroto still finds Daikokutten to be more useful with more potential compared to Amatsuhikon. Therefore, Daikokutten and Yaoyorozu are the most optimum choices, muttered Kuroto while walking towards the other room of his secret laboratory. This room was only recently created and was equipped with all sorts of medical devices, additionally reinforced walls and surroundings with complicated ceiling combinations capable of completely destroying the room instantly if Kuroto desires so. Although it is said that the room is equipped with all sorts of medical devices, but in actuality, not much is present here of significant importance. There are only 2 large nutrition tanks equipped with a complete life support system. The people inside the large nutrition tanks are none other than the Uchiha brothers who were being tortured by Kuroto until not long ago. After the previous battle, Kuroto gouged the Manjikyu Sharingan of both the brothers, coupled with irrecoverable injuries they suffered during their time in prison cells, and in the following battle, both of them are in a deep coma and would have died within minutes if not for Kuroto to keep them alive using the life support system. But even Kuroto knows that although they are alive, their bodies and spirits are beyond exhaustion and will never experience true recovery, as such they won't ever be able to get back to their peak state. Therefore, ideally, both of them are useless more, so given the fact that Kuroto has stolen the eyes of both of them, so they should be disposed of as early as possible to avoid any risks, but Kuroto wants to keep them alive a little longer. And to not be careless, he has made sure to put seals all over their body, including their blood. Therefore, Kuroto can be sure that let alone breaking the seal, they wouldn't even be able to blink their eyes unless Kuroto orders so. They are also being continuously injected with anesthesia, so would always be staying in a coma unless Kuroto feels the need to wake them up. There are many reasons Kuroto kept them alive. First is obviously to show that he will always remain grateful for both of them, that they volunteered to be tortured and willingly offered their Manjikyu Sharingan to Kuroto, as such they must suffer less pain from here on until their eventual death. After all, Kuroto is not a lunatic or a madman who has a special interest or takes pleasure from torturing his captives, right? So, there is obviously not much reason left for him to torture these two anymore. The second reason is obviously that their use has not ended yet. Until he finally obtains the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, it would be best to keep both of them alive for convenience's sake, as Kuroto could need their further assistance in the fusion process. Nodding to himself, Kuroto left the room where the two Uchiha would be living their last days and returned to the main lab while thinking it would be best to learn transcription seal before the fusing the two pairs of Manjikyu into eternal Manjikyu. Based on the two known instances of transcription seal being used, it was used by the people of the Uchiha clan being Madara and Itachi, indicating that the transcription seal was undoubtedly developed by the Uchiha clan, so if Kuroto wants to learn transcription seal he can only obtain information about it from the Uchiha clan. But that aside, what Kuroto must do at the earliest are not the Manjikyu fusion or learning transcription seal. Kuroto's current top priority is something else. The top priority right now is to clear up the suspicions on Shursui being Homusubi, the matter of learning the transcription seal, eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, cultivating the fire clone body with Uchiha clan DNA, and all can be done at a later date, but suspicions on Shursui must be resolved first so the restrictions imposed on him will be cleared up. With this thought, Kuroto sat on a chair and devised the outline of the next plan he is going to be using to achieve this purpose. While thinking, he can't help but let out several yawns one after another. Honestly, Kuroto is a little tired after tonight's ordeal. It was only due to the adrenaline rush because of the excitement of obtaining two pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan that he did not notice it until now, but now that this excitement has subsided, the exhaustion has taken over, so Kuroto closed his eyes and took a temporary rest to recover his spirits and counted all the gains from the Uchiha brother torture arc. After a short rest of an hour, Kuroto took a deep breath and unfolded the latest outlined map to plan out the next course of action. Being an Umbu has many perks, and this task where Team 11 was responsible for monitoring the entire hunting operation of Amatsukami allowed Kuroto to be aware of all the routes that were being used, are being used, or will be used in the future. Therefore, it is very easy for him to find the safest and most effective location to bring Homusubi into public sight. Next morning, Uchiha clan grounds, Shursui's house. Similar to the past few days, Shursui was doing some practice in the training range in the backyard training range of his house. Although he is under house arrest under Patriarch's order, Shursui is allowed to carry out his training in the backyard to keep his skills rust-free. Tuck. 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 Amidst the sound of shuriken piercing the wooden targets, Shursui, who was flipping in the air, slowly landed on the ground with his back facing the targets. Turning around, Shursui glanced at the several targets placed at different angles and distances from his position and was happy to find that all the shuriken he threw were piercing the center point of the targets, and the corners of his lips curved in a proud smirk. Even in the Uchiha clan, not everyone can use such meticulous and precise shurikenjutsu, therefore Shursui's mastery and skills in shurikenjutsu are undoubtedly recognized as the best within the clan. Of course, Shursui will feel some pride about this. Clap 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 clap. At this time, the sound of clapping was heard from the other side of the training field. Turning his head towards the direction from where the sound of clapping came, Shursui said with a smile, "Itachi, you are here." "Yes, Shursui-san," Itachi nodded. Oh, Shursui-san, I am also here." A small figure that sprang out from behind Itachi said. Shursui quirked his eyebrow and spoke with a sly grin, "Era, Sasuke, you are here too?" "I am really sorry, Sasuke, you are just too small that I was unable to notice you a moment ago." Sasuke pouted and looked a little upset after hearing Shursui's words. Although Sasuke was abused by Yama, he didn't suffer much damage aside from some traumatic experience. And that trauma was also relieved because of the psychological care Itachi provided Sasuke after that experience. After all, Uchiha Itachi wouldn't want his brother to suffer, right? And unlike the cold and indifferent Uchiha Sasuke who fell into loneliness and hatred after the annihilation of the Uchiha clan at the hands of Itachi, he is still a cheerful and sweet kid who seeks his brother's and father's attention and acknowledgement more than anything. So Shursui's words made him a bit sad and annoyed. Itachi noticed Sasuke's change and flicked his forehead. "Shursui-san is just teasing you, Sasuke." Sasuke blushed, and after nodding at his brother's words, Sasuke turned around as his gaze turned towards the shuriken targets spread all over the training field, and his expression turned to an eager one. It seemed as if he was itching to try. Understanding Sasuke's eagerness, Shisui handed him a shuriken and said, "Wanna give it a try?" When Itachi was around your age, he was already very good at it. He was even able to hit multiple targets easily. Sasuke's eyes gleamed with excitement. Taking the shuriken from Shisui's hand, Sasuke turned his head and looked at his brother. "Nisan, is that true? Were you really able to hit the bullseye of multiple targets when you were of my age?" Itachi smiled awkwardly and finally nodded in acquiescence. In fact, when Itachi was 4 years old, he had even been to the battlefield, killed enemy ninjas, and had to burn the sight of mountains of dead bodies to understand what war truly is. Something that is much traumatizing from what Sasuke went through a few months ago. If Nii-san can do it, then I can do it too. After saying that, Sasuke, who was full of confidence, aimed at the target directly in front of him and threw the shuriken with all his strength. Whyish! With the sound of cutting through the air, the shuriken thrown by Sasuke flew out of Shisui's courtyard and disappeared. Aho! 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 An awkward silence. And the cawing of Aho Crow. Immediately afterward, a shout came from outside the courtyard, who was throwing shuriken around. Sasuke immediately shrank, his face full of frustration and disappointment. Even Shisui didn't know what to say. In the past 2 years, he has been so busy with the missions of Team 11 and the matters between the clan and the village that he had no time to pay attention to Sasuke. Only now did he realize that compared to Itachi, whose talent is simply otherworldly, Sasuke's talent may not be same. While three remained in silence, a crow flew down from the sky and sat down on his shoulder. Shisui received the secret message scroll from the crow and unfolded the scroll without minding Itachi and Sasuke's presence. As soon as Shisui saw the content of the scroll, he frowned slightly. The reason was that the scroll only recorded a time and the name of a location. Seeing Shisui's expression, Itachi asked, "What's wrong, Shisui-san?" Asked by Itachi, Shisui just shook his head in response without giving any detail and burned the scroll immediately. Shisui may have confessed to Itachi that he is Homusubi, but he still doesn't want Itachi to get involved in the matters of Amatsukami, for the time being at least. Somewhere in the hinterland of the Land of Fire, Uchiha Hiragi, with whom Kuroto once had a duel, and Uchiha Yuto, a Tokubetsu Jonin, were patrolling the territory. This route is a shortcut connecting the Land of Fire with the Land of Hot Water and is often used by bounty hunters, missing nin, and other mercenary ninjas because of its remoteness and complex terrain. Uchiha Yuto said, "Did you hear the news that a mountain not far from the village suddenly collapsed last night?" Uchiha Hiragi nodded. There are even speculations that someone of Amatsukami was fighting there, and the result was an explosion that left a great amount of damage to the nearby territory." Yuto sighed with frustration. Just what in the hell is this Amatsukami? Why is there no information about this organization? Hiragi glanced at Yuto and snorted, Are you scared? Yuto chuckled condescendingly, "Aren't you scared at all? The village has been searching for their traces for the past 2 months, and yet there is no success. Ryota-sama and Hideki-sama were captured so easily by them, Shisui was defeated by them, even Sandaime couldn't." Yuto suddenly stopped and his gaze narrowed at something. Hiragi turned towards him and asked, "What happened?" Yuto raised his hand and pointed into the distance with his finger trembling. Do you also see those two? They wouldn't happen to members of Amatsukami, right?" Hiragi followed the direction of Yuto's gaze, and his expression shrank immediately. The sight he saw was not at all horrifying or anything, just 2 people wearing that unique type of black cloak with a golden threading pattern all over it, a unique symbol around the chest part of the cloak, and finally a mask over their face. The symbol on one of their chests was that of the fire chakra nature, while the other one had the symbol of wind chakra nature. Similarly, the masks they wore were also different. One wore a fire-patterned mask while the other one had a wind-patterned mask. "You are right, they have to be members of Amatsukami." Hiragi was surprised and thought silently, "Damn it. They have come after us this time. What should we do now?" The achievements of Amatsukami can really make anyone panic when they suddenly encounter members of that fearsome organization. Successfully infiltrating Konoha, assassinating the leader of Kumogakure's peace delegation, and finally managing to escape with his body, even under the combined siege of Sandaime Hokage, a large number of Umbu, and Konoha military police force. Successfully defeating Uchiha Shisui, as well as kidnapping Uchiha Hideki and Uchiha Ryota one after another without leaving any trail behind, makes everyone subconsciously have a fear of Amatsukami. And now that Hiragi and Yuto have suddenly noticed two members of Amatsukami coming from the opposite end, they are clearly frozen and can't think of anything. Based on the intelligence, the two members who are coming from the opposite end are already known. The one wearing the fire-patterned mask is Homusubi, the person said to have the Manjikyu Sharingan. While not much is known about the second person walking on the side, but he did participate in ambushing two members of Umbu Team 11, and based on the intelligence those two have given, he seems to be stronger than Suijin and Homusubi. Yuto took a deep breath and spoke with a stammering voice. What should we do? What should we do now? Immediately, Hiragi also took a deep breath and shouted, "Fire the signal flare." What? Yuto was taken aback, and immediately spoke, "Then what about us? We will definitely have the same fate as Ryota-sama and Hideki-sama if we stay here. Do you want us to just die? How about, why don't we run away now?" Hiragi took out the signal flare from the ninja bag on his waist and spoke with a bitter tone, "Don't be stupid. Do you seriously think that we can escape now? At least this way, it will be known." Saying that, Hiragi immediately fired the signal flare. Bang, wildly. Boom. As soon as the signal flare was fired successfully, Hiragi breathed a sigh of relief. Although it is still daytime, the signal flare will be easily noticed, therefore, Hiragi was not worried that others wouldn't be able to spot the signal flare. The two members of Amatsukami noticed that Hiragi was firing the signal flare, but they did not take any action to interrupt him and were calmly walking towards them. Seeing that the two members of Amatsukami did not have any intentions of retreating, both Hiragi and Yuto looked at each other and gulped in nervousness, following which they both nodded to each other with a hardened gaze. "If our death is unavoidable, then it is better to die fighting rather than running," were the silent words that their gaze said to each other. Both of them immediately took out their weapons and got ready for the fight. Hiragi had his favorite and trusty sword, while the other one had a kunai in both his hands. As the two members of Amatsukami came closer and closer, Hiragi let out a battle cry, "Although the odds are not in our favor, as Uchiha, we must not cower or run away in the face of the enemy of the clan and village." Yuto also gritted his teeth and finally nodded. "Yes. Fight to the death." At the moment Hiragi and Yuto finished, the two members of Amatsukami were just 7 steps away from them. Step. Traces of sweat flowed down the temples of both the Uchiha. Step. Gaze hardened and locked at the enemy. Step. Chakra started to flow down to muscles, amplifying strength. Step. Muscles started expanding, ready to take action any moment. Step. Weapons were drawn backward to give them momentum. Step. Lungs expanded to fill in the necessary air. Step. Both Hiragi and Yuto ready for the battle. Step. 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 Both Hiragi and Yuto were ready to die, but the two members of Amatsukami did not give the two Uchiha even a single glance from beginning to end and passed by them as if both Hiragi and Yuto were just ordinary rabbits in the forest. A strange silence. Uchiha Yuto let out an awkward groan at what just happened. Hiragi also had an awkward expression, but indescribable humiliation suddenly flooded his mind. "Damn it! You dare ignore us!" With a roar, Hiragi turned around and rushed towards the two members of Amatsukami. At this time, Homusubi turned his head to look back, causing Hiragi to suddenly stop his attack. No word was spoken between them and Hiragi suddenly dropped his sword. The other member of Amatsukami did not even turn around from beginning to end, as if he did not care about what Hiragi intended to do. With Hiragi frozen midway, Homusubi retracted his head and walked away. As the two members of Amatsukami walked away, Uchiha Yuto carefully came next to Hiragi and spoke while shaking him. "Hiragi-san. Hiragi-san, what's wrong with you? Are you alright?" Urged by Yuto, Hiragi finally took a breath and immediately collapsed to the ground. The pressure and bloodlust a few moments before were too much for him to bear. His expression was in a daze, and he murmured, "Manjikyu Sharingan. That person really has Manjikyu Sharingan." Moreover, the pressure he released was too terrible. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kayashin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons: Ben Phillips, Yami Tancho, Harold's Martinsons. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be here until next time.